Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. On today's show, I have 6 Steelers players currently on the Steelers roster that I think should be getting more playing time in the weeks to come. And then I also have 3 Steelers players that are getting a lot of playing time right now that I think should be getting less than what they're currently getting in this Steelers roster. So before we get into the rest of today's show, and before we get into our content today, make sure you give me a follow on X if you haven't already for more Steelers content every single day. I put out a bunch of different stuff on there, film analysis, my notes after every single game as well. I kind of put out a lot of my takes that I put on this show out on X before I actually put out a video. So if you guys want to kind of know my instant reaction to certain Steelers news items, all that different stuff, film analysis, you can follow me at Jack_Sperry. I'm so close to 5,000 followers on X, guys. Help me get there right now by giving me a follow. I would greatly appreciate it. So first up here, I want to actually start with the guys that I want to play less, all right? Because once we go into the guys that I want to play more, it's kind of self-evident which guys I want to play less, all right? So we'll start with Chuck Clark, who is really the team's starting free safety right now. And I can't explain it, all right? Clark is an older guy that's lost a step athletically, and he was always better as a strong safety than as a free safety. But even in recent years, he hasn't been as good playing strong as free. And, you know, now he's getting starting reps in a position where you really want to have a guy with speed, and Clark just doesn't bring that. He doesn't bring a lot of really aggressiveness to the table, in my opinion. Sometimes his aggressiveness can be out of place, and he can have poor pursuit angles, miss tackles, be out of position in coverage. And I just think that, you know, especially because this safety room is completely healthy, all right? Jabrill Peppers, Juan Thornhill, Deshaun Elliott, and even Jalen Ramsey. They're all healthy right now. So I thought Chuck Clark was brought in here to be more of a backup, to be more of an emergency piece in case there's injuries. And if that's the case, I have no problem with him being on the field. He's a veteran with a lot of experience, all that stuff. But, like, when you've got other players that I believe are better not getting playing time because Chuck Clark is out there as your starting free safety, I think that's a big personnel blunder that Mike Tomlin and Teryl Austin are making right now, and I think that they need to switch it up. And you guys can see just how much he has played this season, all right? He was like a full-time starter those first few weeks when the Steelers were dealing with some injuries, but even last week versus Cincinnati, when everybody was healthy in the secondary, he had 46 snaps. That is a full-blown starter workload in this defense, all right? And is it a coincidence that, the Steelers' best defensive performance of the year, Week 6 versus Cleveland, he was a healthy scratch? I mean, how does he go from being a healthy scratch in Week 6 all the way to starting at free safety over Juan Thornhill and Jabrill Peppers the next week? That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, guys. And I think moving forward, I wouldn't mind if he continues to be healthy, be a healthy scratch, and he doesn't get a helmet. He's a nice guy to have if there's injuries, but he shouldn't be a full-time starter in this defense, and he should be playing less. Another guy that should be playing less, and I hate to do it because I love him as a guy, but Yayah Black. On film, particularly in run defense, his pad level is just not very good, guys. He's upright. He can be pushed off his spot. He's out of position too often. And, I'm not saying throw him in the garbage, never play him or anything like that, and don't have a plan for his development. I still think Yayah Black has the functional strength and the potential to be even a starting level player on this defensive line someday. I really do believe in the physical skill set with this young man. But right now, the technical skill set is just not there consistently enough, especially in run defense, for me to feel confident with him getting as many snaps as he's getting, because he's getting like 20-plus snaps a game on the defensive line. And for me, that's just a bit too much for somebody that, from a technique perspective, is just not getting the job done. Then the final guy that I would play less in this defense, and all these players are defensive guys, by the way, is Darius Slay. And, I think that this one's a little bit contingent on what the plan is moving forward from Mike Tomlin and Teryl Austin. If the plan is to play less man coverage and to play more zone, play more man match, play that kind of defense, I'm perfectly cool sticking with Slay. All right, Slay just doesn't have the long speed anymore, or frankly, the closing ability to be able to play man coverage at a high level. But unfortunately, the Steelers have been playing man at one of the highest rates in the National Football League through the first 7 weeks. So if you're going to play man, I think you got to take him off the field and you got to sit him. Now, personally, what I would do is I would play just less man, and I would put Darius Slay in zone assignments where he can have his eyes on the quarterback and he can play instinctually. The reason why he was able to play well into his 30s in Philadelphia is because they ran an off-zone coverage system in Philly where he could play off and he could have his eyes on the quarterback and he could use his eyes and instincts to be able to affect the play and to affect the concept, right? So, the Steelers have really been playing a lot of man coverage this year. If that's going to continue, I don't think Darius Slay should be a starter. He just doesn't have the athletic tools at his disposal anymore at 34 years old to be able to be an effective man corner. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. If you had to bench a Steelers starter right now, who is it? If I'm picking one player, it's got to be Chuck Clark. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section for today's pinned question. Just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Mando Whole Body Deodorant. While I tell you about Mando today, get down there in the comments section and let me know which Steelers starter you think deserves to be benched. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Mando. And fall is officially here, and that means a few things, okay? Crisp air, football, maybe a bonfire or two, but if you're like most guys, you're still putting in a lot of hard work. And yeah, that means sweat. Don't let body odor sideline you. Mando deodorant plus sweat control is for real working guys. Formulated to stop odor before it starts and doesn't mask odor with overwhelming fragrance, so you can tackle anything from the job site to tailgating with confidence. This isn't your typical deodorant, guys. It's clinical strength, which means 2 times better at controlling sweat than the standard. It controls both sweat and odor for 72 hours, and after just 12 hours, underarm sweat was reduced by 92%. I got to tell you, man, this stuff really works, which is why I actually use this product. I brought in my own stick of Mando deodorant today. I use the Cedar Grove scent, and I also have a whole bottle of Mando body wash in my shower at home. I love the bourbon leather scent for that one, and I couldn't recommend this company more because it keeps you smelling fresh all day long, and they've got some really great scents that aren't overpowering or anything like that, but smell masculine, they smell clean, and they smell fresh. So Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers, guys, because it comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice. You can get a mini body wash, like I mentioned earlier, or their deodorant wipes are actually very highly recommended as well. Plus, you get free shipping, so there's no reason not to try Mando Whole Body Deodorant today. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. That code, chat, or use code chat at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide. Plus, you get free shipping. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Mando's got you covered from head to toe with deodorant plus sweat control. So say goodbye to sweat stains and hello to long-lasting freshness with our friends at Mando Whole Body Deodorant today. So the guys that I would play more, and this list has to start with Nick Herbig, because Herbig has been a revelation this year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, he has been this team's most productive edge rusher on the team, and he's barely getting any playing time. All right, he's getting like 29 snaps a game versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, he got 29 snaps in the game against the Bengals. And, for somebody that's putting up the production that he is putting up, that's just unacceptable to me. And the reason why that's unacceptable, in particular for the game that they were playing, was because it was a game being played on a short week. So, fatigue was already going to be playing a factor in this football game. But also, Cincinnati controlled the football for large portions of this game, and your defense was on the field for long portions of the game. So it makes even more sense to rotate in Nick Herbig, but they didn't do it. And Tomlin's excuse this week was that Herbig is worse in run defense, all right? And, he's not good in run defense, and they were trying to stop the run, all this different stuff. But, when you look at the numbers, actually, like, Nick Herbig's been perfectly fine as a run defender this year, and frankly, the Steelers' defense as a whole has been maybe even better with him in there versus Alex Highsmith this year. So the excuse of we only played Nick Herbig 29 snaps because he's not a good run defender and he's undersized is just a BS excuse from Mike Tomlin here. And I've been a defender of Mike Tomlin on a lot of different things. I still am, but for this particular excuse to not play Nick Herbig, it's unacceptable to me. And my take on the situation is that Pittsburgh should have a 3-way split at edge rusher. They should not have 2 starting edge rushers and a rotational guy. They should have 3 starting edge rushers, and they should be attempting to give these guys as close to a three-way split as you possibly can. The benefits of that is that you get Nick Herbig's production on the field just as much as Highsmith or Watt, but also all three guys can keep their legs fresh throughout the course of games and throughout the course of the season. All right, it's going to make this Steelers pass rush even more dangerous, and there's just no reason at this point to not adopt this strategy. I understand you spent as much money as you did on Watt and all that different stuff, but I think it's about creating the best possible product on the field as you can. I think the best way to do that is to have a three-way split and essentially have three starting edge rushers in this defense. So give me a true or false down there in the comments section. Nick Herbig is Pittsburgh's best edge rusher. Give me a T if you think that's true, or type F if you think that's false. I think Herbig has been the most productive edge rusher for the Steelers this year, but I would still give it to TJ Watt because he gets pretty much all of the chip, double team, and triple team help, which obviously benefits Herbig because he gets way more one-on-one opportunities, leading to higher production. All right, so for me, TJ Watt is still the best on the team, but Nick Herbig is not that far behind, and that is saying something, guys. So give me a T for true or F for false. And now let's talk about Juan Thornhill. And you guys know if you've been watching the channel for a while, I was actually okay with the team embracing Juan Thornhill as their starting free safety heading into the year, but for whatever reason, they have been playing Chuck Clark at free safety, and I don't understand why. I think Thornhill has actually played pretty well this year, and he certainly played better than Chuck Clark. I love the physicality he brings. Teams do not want to go over the middle of the field when they know Juan Thornhill is coming downhill, and he's made some really great plays cutting some in-breakers and some crossing routes this year that have been really impressive that Chuck Clark just simply isn't making in this Steelers defense. I like his instincts. I like his aggressiveness. I love his hard-hitting mentality. I love, that kind of juice that he brings to this defense. And for me, he's got to be the full-time starting free safety. And then I would like to see this team at least rotate in Jabrill Peppers. All right, right now they're just not really playing him at all on defense. And, he plays that first week versus his former team in the New England Patriots, has a PFF grade, by the way, of over 90, forces a fumble, all that great stuff. He played phenomenally with 43 snaps, a full starter's workload, and since then he's only played 10 defensive snaps, and he's gone 0 for 2 of those games, the Viking game and the Cincinnati game. For me, Jabrill Peppers is too big of a talent. He's too good of a tackler. He's too instinctual. He brings too much to the table to just, delegate him to a special teams piece, all right? This isn't Miles Killebrew we're talking about here, who's like a true special teams ace. Peppers brings a lot of special teams upside, that's for damn sure, but I feel like we're wasting, some of his talents as a defensive player as well. And I understand you got Deshaun Elliott at strong safety, and you maybe don't trust Jabrill to be a free safety. I understand that, but maybe go to multiple safety looks, maybe go to some dime packages. Find ways to get Jabrill Peppers on the field because, he can bring a lot to the table. He's a good tackler. He's still got his legs with him. He's a smart player that's been around the block. I just feel like you're wasting a guy like this by placing him on the bench, especially in favor of a guy like Chuck Clark. But then you get to Brandin Echols. I mentioned earlier, if they want to keep playing their man coverage style of defense in the weeks to come, I think Slay should be benched, and the guy that I think should replace him in that scenario would be Brandin Echols. And Echols has been a really good pickup for really cheap for the Steelers in free agency. He's honestly been one of their better moves in free agency, maybe outside of Aaron Rodgers in terms of a true free agency signing this year. Echols has been really good. He's played in the slot really well. He's played outside more than serviceably. He's got the highest PFF grade out of any corner on this team right now, and that includes Jalen Ramsey. Obviously, PFF grades aren't gospel, but, Echols at least has speed. All right, Darius Slay really doesn't have, quickness. He doesn't really have, change of direction ability that he once had. He doesn't have the long speed that he once had. But Brandin Echols still has all of that. He's a little bit shorter, but if you're looking for somebody that brings a little bit more juice and brings a little bit more speed to the table, I think he's been a lot better in man coverage this year than Slay has been. So if you want to play more man, I say play Brandin Echols. Another guy that I would play more is Daniel Ekuale, the defensive tackle. He's arguably been maybe outside of Derek Harmon and Cam Hayward, but Ekuale has been one of the better run-defending defensive linemen for the Steelers this season. He has been a really good pickup in his own right in free agency. for a cheap contract, all that stuff. And, as a nose tackle that comes in when Keanu Benton needs a break, he's been better than Benton as a run defender, all right? But he's only getting like 9, 10, 12 snaps a game. Like Yayah Black is getting 20-plus snaps a game, whereas Ekuale, is barely getting into the double digits most games, okay? So I would flip that. I would give Yayah some work, but not quite as much, and I would give Daniel Ekuale more work, especially on early downs. And I'm hoping we see more of 96 this week as you go up against the Green Bay Packers and Josh Jacobs, and you got to stop him if you want to win this football game this week. And then the only offensive player that I have on my list today is Roman Wilson. And listen, man, obviously with Calvin Austin III coming back and with the multiple tight end looks that the Steelers run, Roman's going to have less opportunities moving forward, in theory. But I think Roman's looked good these last 2 weeks on film. Now, he's got somewhat limited opportunities. He's made some nice catches, though. He's picked up some first downs. He's looked good after the catch. He's shown good instincts. He's made catches with his hands, not his body. He's showing a lot of things that he showed at Michigan that made him a third-round pick. So hopefully he's developing a little bit more chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. It certainly seems like that connection has been there and has been relatively efficient over these last 2 weeks. And I think in a system here that really only has 2 starting wide receivers, if we're being completely honest, I think Roman Wilson's a good rotational third wide receiver. I really do. He's somebody that brings good speed to the table. I think he's shown some really good route running, and he's really been open pretty consistently. He stops really efficiently, changes directions pretty well. He catches the ball with his hands, and he plays with good instincts, and he blocks his butt off, man. So, honestly, I've been pretty impressed with Roman Wilson, and even though I don't think his workload's going to increase with Calvin Austin III coming in, I think it should increase relative to where it was before Calvin got hurt, right? Because he was pretty much playing nada for the entire season until Cal got hurt. So I think that should change. They should try and get Roman more involved in the offense because I think he's earned it. I think he's looked good on film these last few weeks. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Is Roman Wilson a serviceable wide receiver 3 in this year's Steelers offense? Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. I certainly think that he is and certainly can be, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. That'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for more extensive Steelers coverage all throughout this week. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.